Yeah. Thank you.
Question from Facebook.
Question from Facebook. Yeah.
When in grief, who is grieving what?
When in grief is grieving what? Is exactly this. When there is grief, that's the wave, that is individual wave of expectation. And over the course of that wave's journey, rising, it has been framed, it's accepted a belief system that, let's say there's been loss, there's been death, and I said to you before, once you're in that wave, I don't disagree, okay? There's no disagreement here. I don't disagree that there is loss, there is death. Within that wave and that experience, if it sees itself as separate from the ocean, yes, it's true. There's a belief system that, that we are supposed to love and to be attached, and the people are not supposed to die. And also the belief system is there that when they do die, I should be really, really sad and really aggrieved. And that's natural, all right? I don't disagree. I don't disagree with you at all. Within that perspective, that deceptive perspective, you ought to know I completely agree and I empathize, totally. I'm not blasé like, oh, this poor wave doesn't see correctly. I know the experience. It seems very real. The stories seem all too real. I'm not separate from that. I feel that, It's very important, not to bypass and to always be the ocean that doesn't feel the expression of the wave. It's very, very important. So yes, there is grieving, and yes, it is normal to grieve within that perspective. There's another perspective though, grievers, the ones who lost loved ones. There's another perspective that all waves rise and fall. And there's nothing that can be done about it. And there's nothing wrong. There's nothing disingenuous. There's nothing unsensitive. It's in fact very sensitive to recognize this. And I think most people go wrong here. They think if you don't feel the pain, that you're being insensitive or cut off or you're spiritually bypassing. That could also be true, by the way. That could also be true. But it can also be the case that there's a great sensitivity, like a mother feels, when its child leaves home and knows that the child really believes it's become independent. And the mother knows it's not true. There is no independence ever. That you are the walking carrier, of that, everything that you are, came from the mother and the father. But in this case, we'll just say the mother, representing both parents, the totality of everything. And it's like the mother of totality knows that its child thinks it's somehow separate. And it feels that loss. It can feel and empathize with that pain. But also there's a view that knows that that child will come home, to reality. And so I think as we say, and it is correct to say, if there is a view, the vast view of the ocean without compassion, then you do not have the view. Then you do not have the view. But if there's only grief, if there's only grief, if there's only, and the compassion for that, without the view, then it's not real compassion. It's a compassion based on deception. It's not true. It's like, it's this belief that the waves are never supposed to crash, that they should only rise, and that it's sad when a wave falls, called death, or loses its job. So I think it's very important to maintain the view of that both realities simultaneously, seeming realities are true, the view of the ocean and the view of the wave. So we can always empathize, with the waves and not just be like sort of uncaring, and just sort of, brush it off, And one of the people who follows me, maybe it's you who's asking the question, I don't know. On social media, his son's 18, 19 years old, died, 2 days ago. He took a picture of his son, all on the respirator, and that was it. He died on the respirator. And the first day of that, he was he looked like a little bit stoic. I don't know if she's being stoic or being removed. But then it didn't last. The next day, it was just utter pain, and he kept writing on social media, the sadness and the tears. Must be very painful to be a father who's lost a child. And then to see the president going on and on, never even talking about really the 55,000 dead Americans and the 200,000 dead worldwide. Only talking about, crazy things. It must be very painful as a parent. And I can empathize with that. Like, what if what if you're one of the people who's lost their mom or their dad or their child or their grandparent? Then you see people out protesting and wanting to open the economy and knowing that they have to. Like some people, they have to have this open, this thing called economy. They have to. Because if not, they will die. They will starve. They will lose where they live. So you can't just think about health like I have to stay home, because you may be one of the people who can stay home, who are afforded that luxury. I have a lot of friends like that. They're like, I'm not really suffering. I'm like, then you're disconnected. You understand? That you are disconnected. I'm not really suffering. I was smart. I saved up. I have an internet. I have one of the gig economy jobs. But you're disconnected when you say that. Because there are plenty of people. It's not because you are a smart wave. You're just a wave. And the other waves are all made of exactly the same thing as you. So holding yourself to be a smart wave, who saved up or had that kind of the right job, you're a stupid wave for thinking that. Really fudging stupid, because it's disconnected. That we're all part of this ocean. Each individual wave, and each wave rises and falls the same way. We all rise the same way. We all fall the same way. And then at the falling, you don't, when it goes back to the ocean, you don't raise your head up one last time, right? And say, I was a smart wave. Everyone loses everyone. Everyone loses everyone and loses everything. So you're not smarter, don't forget. You're not more intelligent or lucky. And to think of yourself that way is terribly egotistical. So you have to be very sensitive. So is there grieving there? Yes, there's grieving for the loss of attachment to the way you thought things were and the way you thought things were supposed to be. And it's extremely painful. But there's also the view of the ocean. Vast and still, and nothing is separate from it, and nothing ever really rises away from it or falls back. It's all just ocean. And that brings things into perspective. And that's all actually we call ultimate reality. In Tibetan, Dundam Dumpa. There is nothing but mind. All appearances, all the waves are mind. And that helps us keep things in perspective and gets us out of our individual egotistical grief. So yes, I say there is grief. And yes, I say it's very real for you. And I also say that this pain will not last. No matter how bad you may think it is, it all goes back to reality ultimately. And you can take that perspective anytime you want. You don't have to wait for the wave to crash called death or the end of a job or whatever. It's always present. The ocean is always present and it's right here. And your gateway to that understanding, to that view, is sensation. But if you only maintain the view of the ocean, then you will never have the experience of empathy, of love and compassion. So both are required. So you're not rejecting, even though it's a deceptive reality, it's very real for the waves or the beings that are experiencing that. And to stay disconnected from that is not true. We have to connect to the deception. What's called the relative world. You have to connect to that in order to understand the ocean in its totality. You have to understand the waves. If you only try to understand the ocean without the waves, that's called, resistance, bypassing, staying away from. The mother wants to understand its children and all of its infinite varieties. And it does, it sees itself. So yes, it's deceptive, but it's true deception. And the pain and the grieving is in there, and we don't reject that. All right. So thank you for your question. I hope that helps. Yeah. What else? Anything? Hmm.
Mm.
No. Okay. Okay. Well, thank you for a lovely morning. Hopefully that's useful, and you can maintain the ultimate view that we call the pure view or pure perception, and also maintain the heart of empathy, sympathy, compassion, and true love, in the same way their mother would love her only child. Okay, that's very important. All of it is important, but holding the deception without holding the ultimate view is wrong, and holding the ultimate view without understanding the deception and empathizing with the deception is also wrong. But don't try not to live in one world. When the sea is vast, it's everything as totality. All right. Thank you so very much. And by this merit, may all obtain omniscience, and may it defeat the enemy of wrongdoing, from the stormy waves of birth, old age, sickness, and death, from the ocean of samsara, may I free all beings. Thank you.